If you were to look at a project for a new book, hypothetically, and you were to say, I want to, with or without fantasy, I want to spotlight a particular truth or a few truths that really need to be spotlighted in today's world, what would those be?
Any democracy relies on two things to begin with. It relies on freedom of expression and the rule of law. I mean, that you know, if you don't have those things, you don't have a free society. And right now, we hear noises suggesting that they're thinking of tampering with the First Amendment, and we see regular attacks on the law courts, you know, and
post-immigration ban, etc.
yeah, and just on the nature of judges, you know, a Hawaiian judge described as sitting on a little island somewhere, and you know, neglecting to mention that that little island is a state.
State, right.
So, you know, if you have a concerted attack both on the legal system and on free expression, then that's how you destroy a democracy. You know, and that's what we have to focus on. Now, I mean, my area, because I'm not a lawyer, I actually think I'm grateful for the way in which the courts have been.
They've been quite courageous.
Have been holding the line, you know. I mean, if we're supposed to live with these checks and balances, you know, the legislature has been craven, and the judiciary has been brave. You know, so without them, we would be in a lot more trouble.
Oh, the judiciary has been quite brave, and in the UK as well. And before we get out of politics, could you say a word or two both about Brexit and also about the extreme ends of populism that we're seeing, left and right?
Well, Brexit just, I mean, I'm of the Remain camp, which believes that this has been a historical mistake. And I think there are very stupid aspects to it. I think it's on David Cameron, really. I mean, why this referendum was called and why it was then conceded that a simple majority would carry the day. You know, if you're changing the nature of the state, you're making a gigantic constitutional change. A simple majority is not how people do it. You know, in this country, if you want to make an amendment to the Constitution, you need a 2/3 majority of both houses. You know, and so it's difficult to do, and it's right that it should be difficult to do. Oddly, I think the British currently are in a state of denial. You know, they don't see what's going to happen. You know, and I have this image of England. It is mainly England, that like a family having a picnic on a railway line.
Okay.
It's like, this is a nice place for a picnic. You know, what's the problem? Well, why is everybody so worried? I don't hear a trip. I don't know. What
I didn't see Macron get elected and have him rush to Germany as his first trip as a head of state to try to reinforce Europe.
What is that hooting noise in the distance? So it's just owls. And they don't know what's going to hit them and how badly their country will be damaged. You know, and it's horrifying to watch it.
And the extremes that we've been seeing, the extreme populist, the left and right, what is your take
on that? Well, I mean,
look,
some of it has to do with, in Europe, a lot of it has to do with the austerity regimes, you know, which have put a lot of people into situations of great hardship. And here, even though in the 8 years of the Obama administration, there was a kind of economic recovery, that recovery didn't spread equally across the country, and there were large parts of the country in which people were in real hardship. And the problem with real hardship is it allows the strongman argument to seem plausible, you know, and that's what happened here, and that's what fortunately did not quite happen in France. I'm hoping that if you look at what's happened in Europe, first in Austria, then in the Netherlands, now in France, and that there is maybe a turning of the tide against this populism. But it will require Western democracies, which includes the United States, to understand that they've got to do something about the conditions which allowed this to
fester.
Yeah. And I think one of the most encouraging signs is that after the victory of Macron in France, you heard European Union figures saying, now we have to help him, which means that actually they have to change the austerity programs, etc. You know, you can't just hope that every 5 years the French will make the right decision.
Right. And there's no question that Europe has its dysfunctional aspects.
Yeah.
Brexit just doesn't happen to be the solution for that.
No. I mean, I think there is a real need for a rethinking about how how these countries are run, you know. And there were people very unhappy, very badly off, and unfortunately, those people, many of whom voted for Trump, are the people who are going to be most damaged by his policies. You know, and people who will lose health care are the people who need it most. And the idea that somehow the coal industry is going to return it's just one of the stupidities of this thing, but that people swallowed it. You know, and actually, these jobs, many of these jobs, were not lost to, you know, Mexico. They were lost to robots. You know, they were lost to automation, and they're not coming back. And then, you know, you have a president who makes his own clothes in China, but who tells us that everything has to be made in America unless he's making it. So there's a great deal of hypocrisy, and I wonder how long it will take for people to understand how badly they've been fooled.
There's hypocrisy, and there's also a more fundamental credibility problem with someone who never tells the truth. And I was struck at the end of the 100 days that many of the journalists, the proper mainstream media, they were counting the lies.
Yes.
The tally on his 100 days wasn't what are his achievements.
No,
it was how many lies.
And the problem with the bombardment of lies is that it becomes very difficult to keep up. You know, and so some of them go by default because not all of them can be equally investigated because there's too many of them.
Too many of them, right.
Too many of them. To live in this world means that there's a group of people which one must hope will be a dwindling group of people which just believe him whatever he says and distrust anyone who criticizes him whatever reasons they may have. You know, in the end, reality bites, because in the end there actually is a thing called reality. I was giving a lecture in Florida a few weeks ago to a very largely Trump audience, I mean almost entirely. And you know, you get asked questions, or I was asked a question about climate change where I had said something about how almost all the world scientists agree on the science, you know. Mm-hmm. And the questioner said, well, when you said that, that's not true. And I said, no, I mean, actually, it is true.
It actually is true.
It is true. And he said, no, it's not. And so I said, look, sir, we can't just go on going, yes, it is, no, it isn't, because that's stupid. I said, but let me put it this way. If you believe the world is flat, it doesn't make the world flat. You know, the world doesn't need you to believe that it's round in order to be round.
To be round,
you
right.
know? So there is this other thing called science, knowledge, and evidence. And go have a look at that.
So well put.